Look at this new book I got. It's called Beverly. You can't see the title. The library put a barcode right there. So smart. Take a look inside. Art. This art is very simple, very clean lines, and the storytelling, more than anything, it reminds me of, I think, two things. Chris Ware, obviously. I don't know why I said obviously, but the way that the dialogue works, it's very, a lot of things are unstated and it has a very quiet feel, but every now and then there's something pierces through to realize you're living in something more like our world than the fantasy comic world that it looks like. And then another influence, and I think that page, where is it? The one with the, anyways, there was a page with, I want to find it. Rip through the whole book. Oh, there it is. Half this review is just going to be flipping through the book. This page with Virgin Mary. It looks so David Lynch, right? I think so. It's my opinion. What was that? So I don't really have much to say about this book. It's a series of 4 vignettes, I think, 4 or 5, or a few, several. And I don't even know if they're connected. I can't remember. I feel like names came up that were familiar from other stories, but whether this, I don't think it can really say that it comes together as a whole. It's more just like portraits of, I forget when it's taking place. It seems like the 90s or something. I don't think there's a lot of computers or cell phones, and it feels like that. That's like what I walked away with it. When I look at the 90s now, before people really got into the internet, it just feels like a very different world because of that. And that's like sort of the cutoff. Maybe around mid-90s it started to creep in, and by 2000 I feel like most people, you know, of middle or to upper class level wealth were online to some degree. And that's not 100%, but I mean, I talk about the majority. So anyways, this book feels like before that happened, and it's such a different world. You realize that. I don't know if I like this book. I mean, one issue I had with it was that, I mean, I liked it enough to read, obviously, so I did read it. And I did like parts of it. I shouldn't say I didn't like it total. But one thing I had a problem with was the characters, how they look. They all kind of tend to look the same, or at least, like, you know, if they have the same color and style of hair, it's almost impossible to distinguish them. And that, I think, was confusing me with, like, was this a character from another story? And I wasn't even sure if this was, you know, a narrative arc or a larger picture. And I think I'm left saying no, that it isn't, and none of the characters are in the same stories, but I could be wrong about that. I'm that uncertain. But I think each story has like a point of effectiveness. It leaves like a memory of some nuance that is maybe not satisfying as a story with a traditional narrative arc, but I was thinking a little of James Joyce's Dubliners, which I love. It's one of my favorite short story collections, and the way the stories in there don't necessarily... I'm gonna pause while the fridge does its thing. Alright, we're back with no fridge sound. Don't expect me to remember where I left off with Beverly. Like these book reviews have plots or narrative arc. Something was happening. Who is Beverly? It's a good question. You don't even know until like 5 pages before the end. I think it's the well, I don't want to spoil it. I think it was a character near the end. That's all I'll say about Beverly. Oh, you know what? I'm just looking at the back cover right now, and there's a quote by Chris Ware. Speak of the devil. I bet he, you know, here's what he says. Nick, I don't even know how you pronounce the author's name, because it's Drnaso. It's like, what is that, Polish or something? Like where you have a DRN like that. You don't see that very much. Nick Drnaso's Beverly captures such a recognizable, raw feeling of the quote-unquote now that if it was a film, Drnaso would be heralded as a stunning new directorial voice. If it was a novel, he would be a literary sensation. But Beverly's chilled windowpane views into the fogged American psyche are not cartoon copies of film or literature. They're something completely new, a debut book by a young writer-artist who has not only absorbed but also advanced beyond the comics which have preceded him. Beverly is the finest and most electrically complex graphic novel I've read in years, announcing an intelligent, shrewd, and disquieting talent, not only to comics, but also to writing and visual art. It will set its barbs in you and not let go. Chris Ware, author of Building Stories. There's another quote, but I'm not going to read that one, by Ivan Bernetti. So yes, it feels like it was published by Fantagraphics or Drawn and Quarterly. Oh, Drawn and Quarterly, yeah. It came out recently. I don't know when. Let's see. This year, last year? 2016, January. So there you go. Beverly. Look at this. Every now and then there's just something totally mind-boggling like that. What is that? What's going on there? That's the end of my review.